And good morning. It is Sunday, August 11th, 2024. I'm Ann Metcalf, and my Facebook chat this morning is on wool. I'm, you know, sort of doing the best I can with conscious eating, conscious living, and we've been looking at clothing, and my body is really wanting some natural fibers. So I've been diving into the different things. We've looked at bamboo, banana stalks that's being turned into clothing, and the whole thing on circularity in clothing textiles. There's lots of other textiles, but right now it's just been clothing. And I've just been taking these deep dives and going from one thing to another and discovering new things. It's amazing. And so, anyway, I'm sharing with some of what I found in my research to talk about this. And, first of all, wool, where does it come from? Well, it comes from sheep, those cute little that when I was in New Zealand over 55 years ago, they said that there was more sheep than New Zealanders. And you would just see them the sheep scattered all over the hillsides. I had no idea what was going on behind the scenes. I just thought, okay, sheep, wool, clothing, or food as well. And apparently, the first sheep that had wool long enough for spinning made their appearance around 6,000 years ago in ancient Mesopotamia. And the earliest reliable discovery of wool textile dates from the fourth millennium, what they call BCE, about the time that wool processing technology made its way from the northeast to Europe. And the apparently it was the wool use of wool spread rapidly across Europe in the Bronze Age, 2300 to 800 BC, and the oldest wool cloth fragment discovered on the continent were found in a Danish swamp dating 1500 approximately years ago. Now, back to the circular design in the textile industry. It's using regenerative materials, keeps garments in use, and provides pathways for reuse, recycling, and biodegradation at the end of life. The whole cradle to cradle concept. Now, and how can we look at, so I'm going to look at wool uh, and how's that used within a circular textile economy in different aspects, but the wool fiber itself. And there's 7 R's of the circular economy, and that is rethink, revamp, refuse, reduce, repurpose, recover, and recycle. And I found it in quite an interesting website this morning called the Ellen MacArthur Foundation.org, Fashion and the Circular Economy, and I'll put the link in my Facebook chat. Now, the fashion industry is rooted in reinvention, as we know, certainly with fashion. Um, what I wore in the 50s and 60s, some of it's come back and some of it has not. So it's changing, and the design and how things are made, the trends. And by harnessing this innovative and creative potential, the industry can make circular business models the norm. And this is the next step towards a more resilient fashion industry where businesses create diverse income stream, foster new connections with customers, and where policymakers support the enabling conditions for circular business models to thrive and regenerates the environment. It prioritizes the rights and equity of everyone involved in the fashion industry and will create new opportunities for growth that are distributed, diverse, and inclusive. They've created a vision for the fashion industry to redesign the way clothes are made and used. And this is going to require industry and government to work together. It will need significant investment, large scale innovation, transparency, and traceability. But if we take these actions together and get started today, this new system can scale fast. And so basically, it's used to make made to be made again, made from safe and recycled or renewable inputs. And together we can make fashion circular and help tackle the root cause of global challenges, such as our climate change, our pollution, which is the biggest thing, biodiversity loss. And today, the textile fashion industry produces between 80 and 150 billion garments annually. 80 to 150 billion garments. Whew, that's a lot. And the fast fashion industry results in 11 kilograms of textiles discarded per person per year. And that's kind of the average, and it's probably more so in European or North American markets, because I'm sure there's a lot of people in, I'm sorry, Africa, some in Asia and India, where they're not discarding that much, so which means some of us are discarding more. And less than 1% is recycled into new product. And most recycling goes to lower value applications. Now, this week I'm talking about wool. And as I said, I've gone into a rather interesting deep dive. What we've been told and what I believe to be true. Wool as a sustainable fiber for textiles. It's been long accepted as an environmentally positive fiber choice with a number of benefits, such as being 100% natural, renewable, biodegradable, and recyclable. And from a sustainability perspective, wool is an entirely natural product that is fully biodegradable. Well, it may be the wool itself, because apparently it can break down, returning its nutrients to the soil without releasing plastic microfibres, such as our synthetic rivals do. And according to circular economy, it prioritizes the rights and equity of everyone involved in the fashion industry. And so I'm wondering, what about the sheep? They're the major player in the wool uh, and fabric industry. And then there's this process called mulesing, and it's the process of cutting off a piece of their butt to prevent flies from attacking the sheep. And they use this method, um, and the lamb is just a few weeks old, and they cut off the skin around the buttocks. And it's done, they use shears, and usually without anesthesia. So it's painful, and it's painful for weeks. And according to our laws in most countries, with vets and your pets, that would be illegal, not to mention cruel. And as with food benefits, there's the other side. You've got um, the whole thing with lamb. I used to eat mutton when I was in New Zealand. I was there for 18 months between New Zealand and Australia. So I had lamb, I had mutton, which is the sheep, um, and different things that I wasn't aware of, especially after doing this reading, is that methane is produced because the sheep are ruminants. There's deforestation to make way for grazing, and the grazing sheep also tend to degrade the habitat, and they're often that degradation is deadly to native animals. They trample burrows and vegetation and compete for the forage that native grazers need to survive. Fencing sheep actually can fragment habitat, spread invasive weeds, and provide perches for raptors to prey on smaller species. So that doesn't look so good either. Domestic sheep are also exposed. They expose imperiled bighorn sheep in the mountains of the American West to a deadly disease like pneumonia. And between 35 and 60% of shorn wool is contaminated by grease, sheep sweat, dirt, vegetation, and feces. The process of cleaning this greasy wool involves scouring with hot water and cleansing agents, producing effluent pollution that most often ends up being dumped into the environment as wastewater. Cleaning up the messy wool, there's different kinds of acids, alkalis, oils, detergents, dyes, SO2, H2O2, hydrogen peroxide, and others are used in degreasing and carbonizing, carding, washing, bleaching, and dyeing of the wool, all of which have a severe impact on the water quality. And during the most often used chemical treatment process, wool fibers are exposed to a chlorine gas that erodes or smooths down the wool scales and then coated with a polymer resin. It's a type of plastic called Hercocet 125, and it's a polyamide epichlorohydrin polymer. I haven't looked into that one yet, but it's a long name, so I'm sure there's lots of additional information. Millions of tons of wool are processed each year in this way, resulting in wastewater with high levels of absorbable organohalogens, toxins created when chlorine reacts with carbon-based compounds. And I've got several websites that I found in my research, so you can explore those. The Sierra Club, their title is How Wool Was Pulled Over the Outdoor Lovers. It's so great for the outdoors. And that is true. But when we're looking at the circular economy, we need to include the treatment of the animals in that process. It's, they're a living thing. They feel pain. Um, they're here, yes, to serve us, but how can we do that in a conscious way? And that's part of when I bring these topics. It's important for us to think about. So we've got habitat degradation caused by grazing sheep to the chemicals. Wool production is riddled with threats to wildlife, and so we've got all these different issues that we need to be thinking about. Um, every year, the sheep produce new fleece, making wool a completely renewable fiber. Yes, it is renewable. I'm not sure how long the sheep are kept for shearing. That's another little research to do. And if you know, put it in the Facebook page. And wool is grown by the simple mixture of sunshine, water, grass, and fresh air. Wool grows on sheep's body because of the proteins, lipids, and minerals naturally absorbed through their diet, much like how humans grow hair. Environmental factors include the climate, the day length, soil type, and feed type that contribute and influence the production of the sheep's wool. And there is a use for every part of the wool fleece. Nothing is wasted. Although there is something that I found, um, and that I'll come down to it, but it's called coarse wool. And apparently, you've got raw wool, and it's got all those little nutrients in it. Apparently, if you bury it, um, it will naturally decompose in soil in a matter of months or years, slowly releasing valuable nutrients back into the earth. Um, so, um, yeah, I don't know. I don't raise sheep, and that's not my issue. Can I take a piece of wool fabric and cut it up into little pieces? I'm not so sure because they've used all sorts of chemicals to clean it up, from the raw wool to what we wear on our body. So there's so many factors: how it's been processed, what's been added to the fiber, and so anyway, I'll include the circular wool article and the coarse wool. It's this came from a European site, European dairy and meat industry, currently seen as a valueless byproduct. This coarse wool. It's of little interest to the textile industry, neither for clothing nor for interior design products, and must be disposed of at a high cost to small breeders. To avoid these costs, coarse wool is often left to sink into the soil illegally with manure. There we go. Instead of being placed in a landfill. More frequently, it is burned, producing dangerous air and soil pollution. Annual shearing, which is a necessary step for the well-being of sheep, produces 1.3 to 3 kilograms of coarse wool per animal, amounting to over 200,000 tons in Europe alone. All that being said, and there's so much more to dive deeper on wool and all the clothing we put on our bodies, what is the conscious living aspect of all this? I encourage you to do your own research. What kind of fabric is your body asking for? Mine, as I said, wants more natural things. And what is natural these days? I'm going to be looking for banana stalk clothing, um, and who knows what other fibers, and probably more hemp, because hemp uses fewer chemicals, less water. If it's grown organically, it doesn't need the pesticides and herbicides because it's got that natural component to it that it doesn't require those things. So yeah, and I look into the new this organization I found, and it's got lots of it's talking about circularity of many aspects of our world living, not just clothing. What are we willing to do? What are we willing to change, to let go of, to move into the future of respect for all living beings, honoring the planet and the animals, the plants, and perhaps look into the sacred economy as another aspect of our future of possibilities. And so again, I'll put the Ellen MacArthur Foundation link, and they have many articles, videos, different educational things. One is challenging common conceptions, exploring circular economy, understanding the challenges of finite resources, and designing for a circular economy. And they have many more. So, with that, uh, go exploring, find out more. And you, as a consumer, you have a big voice in all of this. You can make these changes by just the individual choices that you make. So I encourage you to look at all of this and don't go crazy about it. But um, if you're going to live consciously, make those choices. And anyway, namaste. Have a beautiful day. And whatever it is, and remember, we're evolving. It takes time, and we will be shown things within time. And with the new ideas that people have these days and being creative, we will get these solutions to clean up. We've left a very messy picnic on our planet, and it's time for us to clean it up. Not somebody else, not to ship it out someplace, ship it to another country, ship it off to Mars. Mars doesn't want it, that's for sure. And then the circular economics of that, I don't think so. Anyway, have a wonderful day, and until next time, thank you for listening.